Hi, and welcome to my knitting podcast. This is my 7th episode, and it's been quite a long time since you heard from me the last time. There has been a lot going on, and I've been thinking about doing this podcast like forever, but my husband has been home and have had some sick days, so that's kind of some of the reason, and some of the reasons is also that I've been really exhausted the last couple of months. So it's taken me some time to find a really good day. Today it's sunny outside a little bit, and I hope the lighting will be good in here. And I feel kind of refreshed, but still a bit exhausted. So I hope will bear over with me. This podcast I announced like the last time that I was going to be talking about how to use leftover yarns, and I've prepared some different topics about that, so I can walk you through how I use my leftover yarns. But first of all, I have been asking myself the question, why would you use leftovers? I think it's individual why you would use leftovers, but for me it's about, especially if I like some really nice yarn that I bought, usually it's the ones that I really have some kind of feelings towards, when I buy yarn, there's usually some kind of emotion that triggers me to buy it, and when it's something I find really pretty, usually it's hand-dyed yarn. I like to see it be used in more than one project. So in a way, my leftover yarns is not called leftover yarns because I kind of I like to plan or think how I can use it in more than one project. And then I also do have some leftover yarns that I don't have that many emotions connected to it. Like I have several really dark gray yarns that I just don't like. I kind of hate that they are in my stash and I can't get them used. But I'm thinking about how I can get them used, especially when I'm talking to you about this topic today. Like I think for many knitters, yarn there is a lot of emotions connected to our yarn, and like if we buy the yarn and use it for something that we really like, then we have a certain connection to that yarn. It tells stories in a way, and especially that's why I like that I can use my yarn in more than one project. And also if I've used it, some of the yarns in a project for one in my family, then there's also some kind of feeling connected to using that in a project for myself. So I found out that the first time when I like over a year ago, when I was knitting a big project by Stephen West, the Marled magic sweater, a big poncho, and I was finding some yarns that I've been knitting some dresses for my 2 girls when they were small, and I tried to edit that in there. So that was kind of a neat feeling to have that be integrated in that project too. I didn't use all of it, so I've been able to put it into more than one project after that. Yeah. So that's kind of my introduction to this topic. And I found some different ways that I use leftover yarns, and I will walk you through those. The one that that is probably the most easiest way, is by marling your yarns into one project. And designer that does that a lot is Stephen West, where you can just knit 2 or 3 colors together depending on the projects, and if it's leftovers, then you just knit it till it's till you run out. If it's like really small leftovers, or you can plan how to use a little leftover multiple times in the Marled project. I don't have like a really good example of it, but I have some that could look a little like it. And I finished recently the I'm sorry, I kind of search around in the names, but I think this one is called the Marled Mania sweater for my husband, and it looks like this. Actually, this sweater can be knitted with really small leftovers. It's knitted inside out, and it's knitted with 2 yarns going together all the time. I have planned my the way my changes are a little more, so it got a little more structure. So I had like this for this part, like for 2 inches probably, I was knitting with 2 colors, and then I took one color off and added another one and knitted another 2 inches, and then I took one color off and added a new one and 2 inches, and that's how the striped effect is coming along in this. But I could have, as I was mentioning, I could have done it more roughly. I could just have taken all my small pieces and leftovers, and I could have just picked it out of a bag and then just added it as soon as I was running out of one color. And one thing I really like about how Stephen West, he has he does the color changes. He just when he runs out of a yarn or want to do a color change, he knits like 5-6 stitches with the new color together with the 2 other colors you were knitting with, and then he leaves the old color, so it's kind of weaved in at the same time. So there's no weaving in, you can just do the color change by adding the new one, and then knit those few stitches, and it's already weaved in. And then it's easy just to cut the ends off, like half inch or something from the work, and then you're all done. So using a lot of color doesn't mean a lot of more work. See if I can find an example of that. I did my color change really structured in this one, but you can see how the ends are poking out. Like there's also always a pair of ends here. So it's easy to do these kind of projects, and it's also fun, and you could like kind of coordinate how you want your colors. Like you could sort out all your small colors in like all the light ones, all the red ones, and you can kind of arrange how you want them to be marled into the project. So that is one example of how you could use leftovers. Another example is doing fades, and I don't really have an example of that, but it's, I could check this one out again, because this one is kind of fading from light to dark, and you could do the same with your leftovers, like by sorting them out. You can just make them follow the order you want them to be knit in. The fades, the one that I've heard about how you do them is usually where you knit with one color, and then you when you wanna add the new color, you knit with both the first one and the second one on every other row, or every like knit 2 rows and then change, knit 2 rows and then change. So you have a section where you use both the old color and the new color, and then you take the old color and drop that and knit a section with the new color, and that's kind of how you make the blending or the fading happen throughout the work. So that's also an option for using leftover yarns. Yes. Then I have also I showed you a couple of episodes back that I was knitting this sweater using magic balls. The story about the sweater right now is that I have decided to frog it. I just don't have any motivation for doing it anymore, but I got this far. So it's not that bad, but in this project I was doing magic balls, and I think I mentioned how I did it in that episode, but just quickly here I can show you that you wind up a ball of yarn with all kind of colors that are similar to each other, and in this case, because I was doing actually a Marled effect with a mohair yarn and a fingering weight yarn, I did 2 magic balls where I knitted those together, and I'll just show you again how it ended up. So this is also a way to use small leftover yarns. Of course, in this kind of projects, you kind of want your yarns to be of the same yarn weight, but you can coordinate how you use your leftovers, so you could kind of divide your leftovers into your yarn weights, so you can use them for those projects they are good for. Maybe I should just, if you are more interested in knowing about these magic balls, I'm talking about it in another episode. Just gonna see if I can find which one it was. I think it's in episode 5. I forgot to say something too about using leftover yarns. I really like how I can blend my own colors. I kind of use my yarns as paint, and so if I'm going for like say a red orange color and I don't have a red orange color, but I have a red one and an orange color, I could do a marling of those 2 colors to get the shade of color I want. Or if I like sometimes, or you know that I really like to have use hand-dyed yarn, so sometimes I also just add like a hand-dyed mohair or a really thin thread lace weight hand-dyed yarn in my work to get the hand-dyed effect, but not buying. I feel I'm explaining myself really poorly today. I hope you will understand what I'm talking about. I talked about that earlier. I did the fringes and pearls sweater where I knitted with a lace weight hand-dyed yarn together with a solid colored fingering weight yarn, and I kind of saved some money doing that, or that is a way to save money, doing something with hand-dyed yarn, but where it's put together with a solid color. But you can do that with leftovers as well, and I especially like doing it when I do hats, because you don't need that much yarn in hats. So I showed you this one in the last episode that I was working on it. This is the Snow Flurries hat by Stephen West, and I have knitted with two strands of yarn in all the stripes, but in the yellow or yellow-white one, I had 3 types of yarn going in that, because I wanted it to be fluffy, so I used a white mohair, I had used a neon yellow, and I used a lace weight hand-dyed color. So I got kind of the thickness that I wanted, and also the hand-dyed effect I also got. And the black one is also a hand-dyed fingering weight going together with a cheap sock yarn in black. So that was also a way that I used to save a bit of money. Instead of just buying a DK weight hand-dyed yarn, I just bought a fingering weight yarn and went and knitted it together with this black sock yarn. And actually this color I used in the black, I really like this color, so I tried to add it in more than one project. This one is also in the Marled Mania sweater. I put it together here in the bottom with a more blue color. So these are also 2 colors knitted together. And I'm also using it in the Enchanted Mesa. I will show you that in a moment. That I've been working on for a while. And the red one, I used a bright orange red color together with a more with a red color that was hand dyed, that was more it wasn't as bright as I liked it to be, so that's why I chose the bright orange to go with it. So, and the bright orange red I used for it was also a cheap sock yarn from, I think it was Aveda. And so in that way you can also use your leftovers to like blend them in to get the kind of color you are looking for, you want. So instead of going out and buying new yarns, I just look at my all my yarns, and I see how look at how I can mix the color I like. I think I showed you how I mix colors before. I just take the 2 strands and I twist them around really roughly, and then I can kind of get an idea of how it looks when it's finished. Otherwise you can knit a swatch just to see how that works out. And just to talk a little about this pattern, I just really I think it's a really nice pattern, and I really like this hat, how it turned out. And I can yeah, that looks nice. If I want the ear flaps down, I have to get it more fluffy back. I didn't knit this rib as wide as the pattern says. I kind of like when my hats are fitted to my head instead of like flopping in the back. I like it to be tight to my head. So I'm really happy about this one. And I knitted one for my younger daughter as well, and she doesn't want a pom-pom on her top, not at the moment, and anyway. And I knitted a while back, like almost a year ago, I knitted this Hiberknitting cowl also by Stephen West for her, and she decided the colors she wanted to go into as. It's not my colors, but I got a lot of good, nice comments on it. And it's got a lot of glitter in it and fluff. And so when I was knitting the hat, I was trying to see if I had more of those yarns left so I could knit a hat for her that matches. But you can see that I didn't have more of this really fluffy yarn, so I had another one that almost matches. And yeah, I think that's what I have to say about that. Yep. Okay, and so the cardigan I'm wearing today is called Puzzle. It's designed by Charlotte Spagner. I just finished it this weekend. You can't even see it. It's kind of long, and it's really, really nice and comfortable, and actually also a very simple pattern. In this cardigan also the pattern also goes for using a lot of leftovers, and some of these squares are just so small that your leftovers you can use really, really small leftovers for it. So that's also an example of how you can use leftovers just by like getting your leftovers together and then use them in a project like this. This project is calling for using mostly mohair yarns, just so it won't get too heavy. And I did. Charlotte Spagner also does a really wonderful color dyeing, no, yarn dyeing, sorry. And I love her yarns. But as I've talked about before, I like to see if I can make my work more affordable. So I did buy a few skeins of hers. This is one of them. And this one is the other one. I really like this one. And then I had leftovers in this one also dyed by her, these two. And then I also just had a lot of different leftovers that I added, and then I had bought some hand-dyed mohair that I was knitting together with just solid color mohair, and this is an example of that. So I have a lot of leftovers of this pink mohair. Just one moment. I did show it in another episode, this really pretty hand-dyed yarn by Chaos Yarn. And I just knitted this one with another pink orange color. So this is instead of like using a lot of really expensive yarn, then I can just save some by knitting it together with something else. Yeah. Oh, I feel tired today. I'm really sorry if I don't look so exciting to look at today. Oh, I'm sorry. Two more things you can use your leftovers for are, for example, fillings for stuffed animals. I've heard people, like if they crochet a lot, they use leftovers to put into stuffed animals. So that's also an idea. And then you can use leftovers for knitting samples or swatches. like the really ugly ones I use for that because I don't want to use my pretty yarn for an idea I have. I just do a swatch with the ugly yarn. So that's the way. And then the last one is to knit like different blankets, and I've seen different blankets examples where they are meant for leftover yarns, and I follow Linda from Iceland. Her podcast is called BarbaKnitStories, and she's talked about blankets a couple of times. The last one she talked about in her episode 28 about that was a crocheted blanket called Neat Ribble. I thought that was pretty cool. And then I also learned earlier about a blanket called Northeasterly by Cardigans, which also use leftovers. And of course, for all the designs and names I talk about, I usually put those in the text below in this video so you can look it up afterwards. But those are really good examples of blankets you could use leftovers for. Yes. See if I talked about everything I commented on here. I have recently no, I'll start that sentence again. When I buy yarn, I usually don't buy the same color for an entire project. You know that by now. And that sometimes challenged me quite a lot. But in a way that you could describe that as leftovers too, just kind of large leftovers. So if you like have only 2 skeins of a yarn, I think you would categorize it as leftovers, where I would just think of it as my stash and thinking about what project I can put it in. So just for the example of this, that I want to show you a finished object that I did in this way. And this is my heart blouse or Christmas blouse or whatever you would call that. And in a way it's knitted of leftovers, and in a way it isn't, like I just said. The purple yarn, I had 2 skeins of it. The red one here, I had 1 skein. This Noro yarn from Japan is I had 2 skeins, and then I had I knitted it together with a mohair in this project, and I had 4 skeins of that mohair. So this one is my own design. I wanted, after I did the Soldotna crop top, I wanted to do my own color work in a sweater, and I drew the pattern I think I talk about this website where you can go and do your own color work patterns. It's called stitchfiddle.com, and you can go and put in colors and patterns and whatever you want in there. It's a really cool program. So what I did here was that I cast it on for a what is it called? This part, what is it called? It's not called the yoke. It's called a round yoke. Yes. So I cast it on for a round yoke, and I with the purple one, and I wanted to do the color work, and I knew that I wouldn't have enough yarn for the entire project, as I only had like 2 skeins of each. So the project kind of became design as you go project, because I didn't know how it would turn out. So when I got to this Noro yarn, I was put it on a weight to see how much I needed to use for the body and the sleeves, so the body and sleeve would be almost the same length, and I almost succeeded in that. You can see that there was only a few rows more on the sleeves, and then I kind of quickly ran out of the purple yarn. No, sorry. Yeah, I ran out of the purple yarn, so I kind of didn't know what to do here on the sleeves, if I wanted to do just short sleeves or what. And then I just decided to repeat this heart pattern to make the purple yarn last longer. And when I got to the bottom of the sleeves, I had to do one row shorter on the one rib than the other, because I ran out of yarn. So this is how I used all the purple yarn. So this is how tight it became. But I'm really thankful that I have a small yarn weight, so I can see how much yarn I have left for the different parts of the sweater. So this kind of sweater looks kind of 80s, 70s kind of in its look, and I just love this sweater. I've been wearing it a lot, and I'm really happy about it. But this is also a way you could use leftovers, if you consider a couple of skeins as a leftovers. This is also an example of a new sweater I knitted. This one is also a Stephen West design, his Monsieur Plastique. He just came out with the pattern a couple of weeks ago, and I had all this gray yarn I knew I wanted to do in a one whole project, and then I had just a couple of skeins of this yellow. I had 4 skeins, and I used 2.5, I think, on this sleeve. But this is also something where you could use leftovers or small parts of yarn. Is for projects like this. There are some parts in this pattern where I deviated from the instructions. I didn't do the I-cord bind off. I did the Jenny's surprisingly bind off. I didn't do cuffs on the... Oh, sorry, I didn't do the hole for the thumb in the cuffs. And also didn't do the neckline shaping like the pattern says. I didn't really think that looked so pretty on me. I don't know if it was because my collar goes really small and tight on my neck, but the neck shaping went like this and I didn't like that at all. So I unraveled and knitted a couple of rows, and then I only did neck shaping from this shoulder tip to the other, just one time back and forth on the neck, and then again I bind it off with the Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, it's called. Look it up on YouTube. I will also write it down below. But that's a really neat bind off for ribs. I like that a lot. I could also have done the Italian bind off. I've been experimenting with that recently, and also did it with this sweater. I did both the cast on, Italian cast on, and the bind off, and it also looks really nice. I think for me, I will switch between those two methods, bind off methods, depending on the project. In this project, I thought it would look cool that it was just a bit rough And then also I sometimes I don't like when I've been doing 2x2 ribs and doing an Italian bind off. I think that kind of looks odd when you divide it into a 1x1 rib for then to bind it off afterwards. So yes, and I have another project that I'm working on right now that is also where I also use what you could think of as leftovers. This pretty, I can't say it enough. This pretty yarn from Hand-Dyed, Charlotte Spavner Hand-Dyed DK. It's called number 16 in her mohair, and this yarn I can't show you because now I used all of it, but it's a really thick mohair that you won't knit it together with as a like a thread together with something else because it's so thick. In this project I was knitting it on a needle size 6 millimeters, and I don't have my measuring thing right now so I can tell you the US size, but it's quite a big needle size, and I could have knitted it on even a size 8 millimeter because you can see it's pretty tight in the stitches. And this color, I've realized there's also a color on her website that is called 016, and that's a completely different color than this one. But I have really fallen in love with this color, and so I just wanted another project, and I had like half a skein after I did this puzzle cardigan. So I found this pattern called Killing Me Softly by a Danish designer, Pop Knit, and I decided to do stripes. So this is how it looks like now. I knew I didn't have enough of the yarn left so I could knit the whole sweater, but I had a lot of this white. It's called brushed alpaca and silk from drops, and I knit two strands of yarn together up here, and then here in this section you change needle to a larger size, and then I can use my leftover yarn doing these stripes, and I think it looks gorgeous. I have another skein of yarn from this project, this one down here. Also have like half a skein left of that. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my skeins flying all over the place. But I have like a half a skein of that left too, so I might do another sweater of this with the same technique, striping technique. This is really soft. Yeah, so I think this sweater will be done today. I started on Sunday and today is Friday, so it's a quick project because it's on really big needles too. I think I'm on a needle 8 and 15 millimeters on this sweater, so it knits up really fast. Yes, what else? Oh, I was talking about that I wanted to show you the progress of my Enchanted Mesa. I talked about that the last time, that I wanted to do something similar to Stephen West's with the same colors, and I don't think I've shown you any of it, but at the moment it looks like this. And at this point here, I started improvising because I was supposed to do short rows. Show you the pictures that easier. This black part, the short rows. I was supposed to do those and then do an edging here. But when I got to about here, I decided I wanted to knit a dress, and the pattern, Steven West has also done a pattern for a dress for this sweater, but I wanted to do something else. So at the moment, it's becoming a dress that I do myself, design myself. And I'm doing a parting here because I want it to be open and use it with jeans underneath and just have like a really long dress with this opening here on the side. And I've been doing some bubbles, and you can do leftovers here as well. And these black bubbles is also with the black yarn that I was talking about in the snow flurry hat. So I'm using this, and this is the third project I'm using it in. And this really pretty turquoise color is also a leftover I have. And these are all leftovers. And the sleeve will also be a lot of striping with different leftovers. I will try and do it very similar to the pattern. This one has been resting for quite a long time because when I started this cardigan, I was having two piles of yarns all over the place in different colors, and that was just too much for my head to deal with. So this one was put aside, and it was also put aside because when I was knitting the sweater, this Marled mania sweater for my husband, I suddenly realized that I wanted to use some of the yarns I was using in the Enchanted Mesa. I just started using it at the bottom here. This yarn here, the dark one, I wanted to use that over here in the sweater. So I just broke the yarn on the Enchanted Mesa and started knitting with it over here. And then I'm happy to know that I have a lot left of this blue yarn, so I would use that for the Enchanted Mesa to finish that section I started. Yeah, I'm just picking up yarn that are all over the place. So I'm just gonna see the time. I also have plans on another project where I will be doing a lot of knitting with leftovers. I talked about it earlier, but I haven't started it yet. But this is the design, the Marled Magic Shawl by Steven West. I want to do something that are similar to this one with the orange colors. You can see that. Orange pinkish colors. So I gathered a pile of yarn, and especially small leftovers. You can see you can use small leftovers like this, really small ones. So I will be starting that when I'm finished with the Enchanted Mesa, I think, because I don't need another period of time where I have two projects with a lot of different colors going on at the same time. That's just too much in my head. Not going. Hi. I just realized my recorder stopped, but I was talking about the Marled Magic Shawl, And I just was ending it by saying that I didn't want to knit it right now. And then I started talking about if I had talked about all the things that I plan to talk about. And one of the things that I haven't talked about yet is a cowl that I did for my older daughter for Christmas. I knitted it in brioche, and I used a lot of thicker yarns, also leftovers I had. I don't have much thicker yarns in my stash, so it was actually pretty nice to get some of this used for this project. And because it's brioche, it's really nice, soft and comfortable. My daughter is wearing it for school, so I can't show you how it looks, but I can add a picture here so you can see it. And I used a lot of different leftovers actually, and got rid of those, so that was really nice. And I think it turned out really good. I made a kind of brioche that's called syncopated, where you start by knitting two colors with let's say A and B color, and A is in front. And then I want to switch A with a new color and add C, and then the B was in back, so for the next section I put B in the front and then C in the back. And then when I want to change color again, I change the C that is in back and put that in front and add D as back. And that's called syncopated brioche. It's really cool. And I ended up doing sections that were like this wide and this wide and this wide, and continued to do some kind of order in it. So in a way there was a lot of disorder with the different colors, and then there was a lot of order because of the syncopated knitting, and how wide I did the different sections were kind of equal to each other. And I think that ended up pretty cool. She's really happy about it. So yep, that's also a way to use leftover yarns. And that's actually all I have put in my notes today. I've been talking a lot about different designers and my designs and techniques. And one thing that I actually would like to try out is in Denmark we have a knitwear designer. Her name is Lærke Bagger, and she does some incredible knitting with leftover yarns. And I will add her information in the bottom, and I can also add a picture here from her Instagram profile so you can see what I'm talking about. She's doing two kinds of knitting, one with beads that she adds, and that's not really for leftover projects, and then another where she knits with tons of leftovers. And she does fades, and she does brioche, and she does also stockinette stitches, and they look amazing. She also does knitwear design, but these are usually more supple and not with leftover yarns like the ones that she does in her private time. I think it could be kind of fun to do a brioche sweater ones that a really heavy one, like the ones that I added in this picture, and use a lot of leftovers. So I'm kind of thinking about doing that, but I haven't done it yet. But I'm piling up some leftovers that I just don't feel too much about, like I was starting to tell about in the beginning. Some leftovers that I don't care about using, but I think if I was categorizing them in colors and putting like 3 or 4 strands of yarns together at the same time and do fades, then it could probably be pretty cool. So that's like everybody, I also have leftovers that I don't get used, so that could be kind of cool to get it used in a project like that. So I'm thinking about that. I also talked about some projects in some previous podcasts. One with Intarsia, kind of like this one, where I was talking about how I was painting upwards with leftover yarns. I frogged that project. I haven't told you about it, but I just I felt kind of like I was beginning. I had just like knitted, and then suddenly I saw that I had kind of a boob in the left corner. And I couldn't deal with it. So I frogged that project. And there was another one with a blue color that I had been starting up, and I didn't know where that was going, and I ended up frogging that as well. And as to my own designs, things are pretty slow on that part right now. I'm in a period where I need really not too advanced projects, which is kind of unusual for me, and I don't really know what is going on. Usually I wouldn't knit something like this because it's there's too few colors and it's too simple. I would usually just find that too boring, but at the moment it's plenty of challenge for me, and I can't tell what it's about. I haven't figured it out by myself yet. So I have been a little bit scared that it's because my illness, my burnt outness in my head hasn't stopped getting worse, because the things that I knit now, I know I knitted this one and there's a lot of colors and all that, but I knitted it after a pattern and I just threw in some colors. But my own designs where I kind of go totally crazy, I haven't had any of that going on for a long time. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. I don't have the energy in my head at the moment. Maybe it's because it's January. I don't know. Yep. We've also had a really sick cat, and that's been taking up a lot of energy as well. He's been sick for like since the beginning of December, so we're on his 1.5 months right now. He's finally getting better though, but like dealing with a sick cat, like every day, I told my kids, I'm so tired of having a sick cat, and then I realized how much they feel about having a sick mom all the time. I've been sick for 2 years now. Oh, you don't want to think about that, I guess. I'm trying to keep up a positive mind, and I think I succeed most of the time. I have some plans about this new year. I actually wanted to have some more purpose in my life than just sitting and knitting all the time. So I've tried to write down some things that I'd like to do or experience or learn or something in this new 2020 year. And I think one of the things I'd like to do is knit a jersey dress. I bought some really pretty fabric over a year ago, and it's just laying there looking at me and I'm being bothered by it. But I think I bought a new pattern for doing that, and I think that I will be able to do that in near future. That would be really cool. I think it also could be fun to try out and knit some project bags, but I think I won't. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself at the moment, so knitting a dress is plenty of challenge for me. And then I'm also, I talked, if some of you follow me on Instagram actually, you probably saw that I posted a while back and asked if anybody knew of some kind of software that could help you calculate knitting patterns. And I have been writing together with a few knitwear designers and got their advice. And bottom line is that I guess the most easiest thing and most easy to go to thing is to do spreadsheets. So I have tried with the information that I've gathered right now. I have a size table. I have Elisabeth Zimmerman's percentage system. I have directions for doing contiguous sweater constructions and some other things. So I have some different things that or data, you might say, that I can put into a spreadsheet. But as you know, I don't work fast on a computer. Like just 20 minutes to a half an hour in a spreadsheet is something that exhausts me for days after. Like it was almost 2 weeks ago I was working on the spreadsheet and I was just worn down for the next couple of days. So but my intentions for the spreadsheets is actually that I both could use it for doing my own designs, that I could use it to look up how many stitches do I need to cast on for this gauge and so forth, and how many increases and so on and so on. That could be really cool, and if I end up doing something really pretty and I want to do a pattern for it, I would have all the data easily accessible for different sizes, so I could easily write a pattern for it, because I feel that I want to be able to do patterns again, but the biggest hurdle was to do this different sizing of a pattern. So I want to be able to do that easier for myself. So this spreadsheet is something that I hopefully will be able to finish in, if I'm optimistic, I think in a couple of months. And then maybe I will be able to do some designs on my own again. That could be really nice. So that's some of the things that I like to do in this year. And then I'm also, I booked a summer house on Fanø for the Fanø Knitting Festival coming up in September. So I will definitely be going there and being there for all the festival days. And hopefully I will be able to have some friends from my knitting group joining me in the summer house. I think this time around I would really like to be able to be or experience a knitting festival from a more social perspective, because sometimes when you just come and you go the same day, then you only see the shops maybe, and I like to experience more the whole social thing around it, like meeting people and being at social events and things like that. So I hope that will be something I will be able to experience this year. Yeah, and then there's also one other thing I'd like to do. Also, I invited my mom to go on a knit treat with me. Hannah Just from Flaming Needles. She's doing a podcast and she's doing knit treats. I've talked to my mom about that it could be fun for us to have some mom-daughter time and go for a knit treat. So she's still thinking about it. She's not knitting as much anymore, and especially not at my level at all. So I don't know if she's a bit intimidated by doing such a thing. But let's see what happens. We might do it or we might not. I don't know yet. We'll see. Well, I think that's about everything I could talk about today. I don't have another topic planned for my next podcast, but I'm sure we'll be able to talk about something. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I've given you some new ideas to what you can use leftovers for. Yeah, actually I would like it if you could, if you have some ideas for using leftovers I haven't mentioned here, if you could make a comment below this video to share with me and everybody else watching this podcast. That could be really cool to learn something new. And also, if you like my podcast, please give me a thumb up. And also maybe you want to follow me. That could be really cool too. Yeah. I will write my information of my Instagram profile and Ravelry name below, so you can also find information about all the things that I do. Yeah. So have a really nice day and weekend, and I'll see you for hopefully soon again. Bye bye, and thanks for watching.